The Attack of the Dead Men is one of the most harrowing and legendary episodes of World War I, taking place at the Osowiec Fortress in August 1915, during the brutal Eastern Front campaign between the German Empire and the Russian Empire. Osowiec, a 19th-century fortress constructed by the Russians in the Biebrza marshes of northeastern Poland, was positioned on a key railway and supply route and was considered strategically vital for defending the interior of the Russian Empire. The fortress had been under intermittent siege since the early months of 1915, with the Germans bringing up massive artillery, including 42-centimeter siege mortars known as Big Berthas, in an attempt to crush the defenses. The Russian garrison, composed largely of soldiers from the 226th Infantry Regiment, were heavily outgunned but managed to repel multiple assaults over several months despite suffering from continuous bombardment and poor supplies. Frustrated by the failure of conventional tactics, the German High Command ordered the use of chemical weapons to finally break the fortress's resistance. On the morning of August 6, 1915, at approximately 4 a.m. German troops released a massive cloud of chlorine gas, estimated at over 2,000 cylinders, carried by a favorable wind directly into the Russian lines. The gas, heavier than air, clung to the ground and infiltrated trenches, bunkers, and underground chambers. The Russian defenders had minimal protection, gas masks were scarce, and many had to rely on primitive cloths soaked in water, vinegar, or even urine to cover their faces. The effect was devastating. The gas attacked the moist tissues of the eyes, throat, and lungs, causing internal chemical burns, blindness, uncontrollable vomiting, and pulmonary edema. Dozens died where they stood, others crawled out of the trenches with their skin and mucous membranes burned away, coughing up pieces of their own lungs. Believing the defenders annihilated, the German 11th Landwehr Division, well equipped with gas masks and expecting no resistance, advanced in formation to occupy the ruined fortress. But then, out of the green-yellow mist, a horrifying spectacle unfolded. Roughly 60 to 100 Russian soldiers, many of them disfigured by chemical burns, their uniforms soaked in blood and poison, their faces blackened and decomposing while still alive, emerged from the trenches in a counterattack. These were men whose lungs were destroyed, bleeding from their mouths and noses, some holding their intestines with one hand and their rifles with the other. They moved slowly, like phantoms, bayonets fixed, shouting in raspy, blood-choked voices. The Germans, seeing what they believed to be literal walking corpses, were gripped with terror and chaos. Panic spread through the ranks, they broke formation and fled in disorder, many turning and running back into their own barbed wire entanglements. Some were trampled in the rush, others cut down by the very Russian soldiers they had believed were already dead. The psychological impact of the counterattack was immense, and despite the fact that the Russian forces were outnumbered and terminally wounded, they managed to repel the German assault and hold the fortress for several more weeks. Ultimately, the Russians evacuated Osowiec on August 18, not because of direct military defeat, but as part of a broader strategic retreat following the fall of the nearby Kovna fortress and the German advance deeper into Russian-held territory. Before retreating, the Russians destroyed remaining fortifications and infrastructure to deny their use to the enemy. The Attack of the Dead Men was not just a battle, it was a terrifying reminder of the new horrors of modern warfare, especially the introduction of chemical weapons, which violated long-standing conventions of war. Yet it also stands as a profound symbol of courage, resilience, and human willpower. The episode became famous in Russian military lore, later referenced by Soviet and modern Russian sources as an example of indomitable spirit. In the years since, it has been the subject of books, documentaries, and even songs, immortalizing the undead-like charge of mortally wounded men who refused to die quietly.